Now, the last section of Chapter 9 is just when you have to start putting it all together and trying to test out which confidence interval you're supposed to make. So when you're faced with a problem on the exam or in a mini test or an online test or an online homework problem, it's not going to tell you this one was proportions, at least not directly, but it'll be there in the instructions somewhere. So you got to look and say, hey, what am I working with in this problem? Am I working with proportions? That's this top bit where we learned proportion stuff. Am I working with means? That's this next one. Or am I working with variance or standard deviation? That's the last time we learned. So let's go over these. Proportions, you're trying to estimate the population proportion, like what proportion of people are going to vote for so-and-so in the next election. So we don't get that population proportion, we get a sample proportion, and then we estimate from there how it's going to work with this formula right here. You create an interval, p hat plus or minus z, alpha over 2, all that stuff. We learned that in section 9.1. And you can see from the formula, it uses z, which means you're using the standard normal distribution there. Now, where would you get this interval in StatCrunch? It's under Stat, Proportions. There's Proportions, one sample. And you can either choose data or summary depending on what you have. Most of the time for you guys, it'll be with summary for that one. That's if you have an X and an N given to you, which will be almost all the time. All right. Oops, sorry, not that one. Then we learned how to work with means, like the average, salary for people at such and such company, or the average body temperature of so-and-so, or of all tigers on the planet, that kind of thing. So you don't get to know the average body temperature of all tigers. You get to take the average body temperature of a sample of tigers. That's using the t distribution. And we learned about that in section 9.2. The formula for that interval is right over here, x bar plus or minus t. You can see it uses a t. That's the t distribution. Now under StatCrunch, we get that one with t statistics, one sample. And again, you have this choice of data or summary. It depends. If they gave you raw data, like we do with this GRE stuff right here, then you'd use data. If you didn't have raw data, you'd choose summary. So if they give you x bar and s in the problem, that's summary. If they give you a column full of data or a table full of data, that's with data. Okay, and of course, with both of these, you should always know how to be able to read StatCrunch output, read Minitab output, know how to look at intervals in context and be able to explain stuff about them. Now, the last kind we learned was in section 9.3, which is if you're trying to estimate population variance or population standard deviation, you use either sample standard deviation or sample variance. Sorry, that was a mistake here. Okay. All right, now the formula for that uses the chi-square distribution. We learned it in section 9.3. And the formula for variance is n minus 1 s squared over the chi alpha over 2 squared, and then chi 1 minus alpha over 2 squared. To take the standard deviation one, you just take the square root of each of those. And that you can find with StatCrunch under Stat, Variance, one sample. And again, you have this choice of data or summary, and it depends on what you were given in the problem. All right, now there are a couple other formulas you should keep in mind. We learned these three. These first two were from section 9.1. Those are sample size when you have a prior estimate of the proportion and when you do not. That's the middle one. And then over here is sample size when you're trying to estimate a mean. Now I want you to keep one other thing in mind, which is that on your exam and on your final, you're given a note sheet. Let me go grab it. Okay, should be here for my classes. It'll be under document sharing, or if you're in the face-to-face class, I'll just give it to you, and your instructor should give it to you. So for us, under document sharing, under exam reviews, you can see it right here, Inferential Statistics Cheat Sheet. So you can download that onto your computer. It won't harm your computer. And there we go. It's in PDF. I give this entire packet. It's 11 pages long. I give it to you for every exam. So not only do I give you the table, which we've already run into before, these guys, the chi-square table, the t-table, stuff like that. So I give you those, and I will give you a packet called the Inferential Statistics Cheat Sheet. I will give that to you. And you can see in here, there are the sample size formulas we just saw. This is one sample proportion when you have a previous estimate. This one's the one when you don't. That's for one sample mean. These other two are going to run into in chapter 11, so we'll see those later. Down here are the confidence intervals formulas we just saw. That's 9.1 right there. 9.2 is right here for the sample mean. C uses the T. And then the chi-square ones right there. Now these other ones that say 2 sample, that's going to be chapter 11. But I will give this page to you and all of these pages. They are just given to you, so you don't have to memorize any of this stuff. You just have to know how to apply it, how to read it, how to read the outputs, and then how to use those things, or how to substitute. Which formula do you need to use and when? That kind of stuff. All right, we are all done, I believe, with Chapter 9, so you want to make sure you save your technology file, Chapter 9 Technology, and upload it if you're an online student. So we've gotten everything. The last thing we did was did this confidence interval here with chi-square for variance and standard deviation. So we are all finished. We have recouped and recovered all of this information, and now we've got to try to get it all in our brains before our exams. All right, I'll see you back here for Chapter 10.